At the end of last year, we hit the benchmark of 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And when we hit that, we said we were going to do two things. We were going to watch a movie and react to it at the choice of you guys, and we are going to be doing that. That'll be out soon. But we also said we would jump into our top 10 favorite movies each. Now that we have 10,000 subscribers, I think this is a good time just to give you guys a little bit of a taste of the stuff we like so that when you're watching our reactions or thoughts to Star Trek or any of our audience cut episodes of movies we're talking about, you can have a little bit of an idea of kind of the background we're coming from and the kind of stuff that we like.
Yeah, so you can go like, oh, those guys like those movies. That now it makes sense why they're that dumb.
Exactly. And with that being said, I just want to, remind everybody we're two guys who were born in the 90s, and don't be shocked if our lists reflect that. We're not saying these are the top 10 best movies ever made. This is 10 movies that we personally love for, it could be a personal connection or maybe we do appreciate the filmmaking of it. We'll get into it for each movie. But if there is any of these movies that you guys are interested in us doing more of a deeper talk on, then our audience cut series would be great for that. So let us know if any of these movies you would like us to select, to watch, and talk about for that audience cut series here in 2024. I don't know about you, Alex. For my list, I try to do what is an impossible task. I did want to pick 10 of my favorite movies, but there is absolutely no way to fit in everything that we love into a list of 10 movies. Like, that's just impossible.
No.
And if we had any type of honorable mentions, it would be a million movies, right?
Yeah, so you can't. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like I'm gonna break kayfabe here. Like I have a list of movies. Like I have my top 8, but my last two I haven't chosen yet. So I'm gonna put pressure on myself. I'm gonna choose my last two. I'm gonna choose from the list because like I feel like especially like my lower five, like are so interchangeable. Like they
Hmm.
can and even stuff that aren't even in the top 5 might go like it's as if it matters, but it's like the pressure. It's like what's gonna be in my top 5? You
Yeah, yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I'm putting this out on the internet. It has to be. Yeah, I mean, there's probably literally 100+ movies I would consider like my favorite movie is perfect, all that type of stuff. To choose 10 of them, that's the number we chose, so we're gonna do that. With that being said, I didn't want to not have an animated movie on my list. I wanted to have at least one, and I went with Monsters Inc. I think it's my favorite animated movie.
Really?
Yeah, of course, there's a childhood connection. One of the first movies I remember seeing in theaters. But also, I think that when it comes to Pixar, which has obviously made a bunch of amazing animated movies, especially their era up to like Wall-E, but I feel like Monsters Inc. just kind of stands above the rest of their movies. It does have one subpar sequel, but it hasn't been bogged down in like the Disney machine of like, Toy Story has just, whole franchise and spin-offs and everything. And
Hmm.
Monsters Inc., I still think is up there with their best ones of original story. I've never seen this like really replicated. Like maybe the movie Little Monsters with Fred Savage and Howie Mandel, but like beyond that, really original premise. Mike Wazowski, voiced by Billy Crystal, is I think one of the best creations of Pixar ever. Like he is hilarious, and like the writing in the movie is like adult humor for a lot of it. Like you can watch it as an adult and still find it really funny, especially Mike's character. I relate to more as I get older of like hating his dead end job and everything. So yeah, really enjoy that one.
That's what makes a great animated film, where have your cake and eat it too. Kids and adults can both like it. Hell yeah. My number 10, it's two movies because I feel like one can't exist without the other. I think that's my rule for sequels. If it's like a completion of a story, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like there's sequels where it's completely different, like Star Trek sequels, but I feel like these two just, they need to exist with each other, and that's Infinity War and Endgame. Uh, Also, we mentioned it, but like some of these movies are just based on personal experiences, and for this theater experience and the culmination of the stories of some of my favorite characters growing up, we saw Captain America together in 2011, and then watched the story end in 2019 with both of these stories. Yeah, it holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, and we talk a lot of crap on Marvel when it's deserved, and we also praise it when it's deserved. We
Hmm.
went from huge MCU fans and all-time defenders to now not really following it as much. So I totally get that, but I'm gonna make you choose one. Which one do you think is the better movie?
Infinity War.
Yeah, I
I mean,
agree.
Endgame has the better resolution at the end, but like the first 2 hours, it's the first that middle hour is like, eh.
Endgame is just like the send off, right?
Yeah, I just needed the last 45 minutes of Endgame.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
as to where Infinity War is just
So
a great movie.
Infinity War is just solid all the way through.
All right, for my number 9, I'm going to go with Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think Edgar Wright is one of the best filmmakers that's like, even though he's really successful and well known, I still think is underrated. Like obviously, some of my other favorite filmmakers that I'll get into later in the list, I feel like, get their deserved praise. Edgar Wright, people love him, especially people who love films, but he still isn't that talked about in the mainstream. I mean, you have the Cornetto trilogy of, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End. I love all of those. Baby Driver, I really love. And then even his most recent movie, Last Night in Soho, that wasn't like critically that well received, I really loved.
Yeah.
I think I love all of his movies and still think it's a tragedy he got fired from Ant-Man. But he is one of the best editors, I think, in Hollywood that's also a director. All of his movies have like that style, and I think Scott Pilgrim versus the World is like him fully unhinged, like able to do whatever he wants, and it really captures that. I think it's like one of the best comic book movies, even though it's not what you think of when you think of like a comic book movie. Scott Pilgrim, right? I'm not huge into the comics or anything, but if I had to pick one of his movies, it would be this one. It's insanely rewatchable and fun. I mean, there's like a literal Seinfeld bit in the middle of the movie. Like it's just a ton of fun. Have you ever seen it?
I have a while ago. I'd have to rewatch it, but I remember liking it. My number 9, I just got to go with it, is another film that's very special to my heart and one of my favorite theater experiences of all time as a young child is Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. The movie blew my mind as a kid. I'll never forget watching the movie in 2005. It's probably my earliest remembrance of being in a theater and just just a culmination of just watching the first 5 Star Wars films and just seeing that as a kid, a 10-year-old kid at the time. It's like that, not the best movie, I know, it's not the best movie of all time, but that's the point of this list. But just that memory, it's gonna hold me over.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil your list. I don't know if there's any other Star Wars stuff on there, but if there's not, I think that everyone like has a favorite Star Wars movie. That obviously people that like Star Wars, they have a favorite Star Wars movie, and then like everyone just kind of acknowledges that Empire Strikes Back's the best one.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back is the best. I know. I don't come at me. I know it's the best one.
Yeah.
Just Revenge holds that special place in my heart.
Like I feel the same way. Where obviously Empire Strikes Back's the best one. I just love Return of the Jedi. Like I don't
Me
know.
too. I love Return of the Jedi. Like I saw Return of the Jedi in the theaters for the 40th anniversary.
Yeah, you told me about that.
It was amazing. I cried I know the ending. I got teary-eyed. It's
Yeah.
like, I get so hyped up at the end.
I think it's the best. I don't want to get too much into it, but I think it's the best one for Han and Leia. Like the Ewoks. Like of course they're just like products, but I think it's hilarious and like I love Endor. So yeah. But anyway, obviously yeah, I saw Revenge of the Sith 2 in theaters, and yeah, for sure that's that. Growing up with the prequels.
Yeah.
For my number 8, This Is the End is probably my favorite comedy movie. And, the reason I picked This Is the End is because I could probably slot in so many different comedy movies of this era and these actors, Superbad, Knocked Up, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Pineapple Express, so many movies made by kind of the same group of people, Judd Apatow, those kind of same group of people. This Is the End was kind of like the climax and culmination of this era, I feel like. Since then, they've tried to make some movies. I think The Interview is pretty funny. There's some movies they've done since then, but This Is the End was really that climax. And one of the most quotable movies for me of all time. Yeah, obviously it's not the best comedy of all time, but I gotta put it as my number 1 comedy because it's there's other funny movies on my list, but in terms of pure, it is a comedy and that's it. Yeah, this is probably the top one for me.
My number 8 is The Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino. If you know me and my style and what I like, this checks all those boxes. I remember seeing this in theaters, saw it a couple times, loved it. I loved the whole isolation winter storyline and just 8 characters in a room and like who's good, who's bad. Love figuring it out. Kurt Russell's one of his best performances ever. Sam Jackson, Bruce Dern, just everybody. It's amazing.
Yeah, I only saw it once when I went on a Tarantino kick a few years ago after like I had seen a few of them growing up, but after watching Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, after watching that for the first time, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I should watch all of these.
Yeah, that was a close one too. But,
So I watched all of them. Personally, I'd probably have to go with Django if I had to choose one, but they're all, I mean, yeah, big Tarantino fan. I think they're all like Does he have a bad one? I guess Death Proof people don't like that one weird one he made.
I don't know. I remember not liking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Then I rewatched it this year, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you're just like, yeah, I know what it is.
This is what I want to do. Okay, you're gonna watch my movie.
All right, my number seven, um, like I'm sure was a struggle for you, it was a struggle for me to choose what MCU movie to put on this list because I, of course, have to involve a superhero movie. It was a huge part of my life, starting with like The Dark Knight and Iron Man. I love a lot of the X-Men movies, especially Days of Future Past, and then the MCU was just a whole bunch of movies. This isn't my I don't think this is the best MCU movie, but I chose The Avengers for my list.
Really?
If I had to erase all of the MCU and only one could exist, I think The Avengers is like it is the prototype or it is the proof of concept of what the MCU is supposed to be, right? You
Hmm.
have all these characters coming together. They have their own movies for the most part. They come together in this one, do something in a team up. None of the other Avengers movies have that same feel, even though I might, you know, understand that like yeah, Infinity War is probably a better movie, but like The Avengers is when you think comic book superhero team up, that's what the movie should be, right? Like and they did it so well, it's almost kind of astonishing. It's almost kind of like a feat of cinema, regardless of what you feel about the Marvel stuff. If The Avengers wasn't as amazing as it is and well done, you wouldn't have had Hollywood try to replicate it for the past decade.
True.
So,
And it was mind blowing at the time, just seeing all these characters from different movies. Because before that, like I don't know what X-Men, Fantastic Four, like they didn't cross, they didn't interact.
yeah.
Spider-Man, they didn't, and like seeing them in the same screen together with the previous movies, like yeah, mind blowing. I remember like Iron Man at the end of Hulk was just like, what? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like wait, what? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, and also obviously a great theater experience. We were in high school when that came out. Awesome to see. And then the Thanos post-credit scene and post-credit scenes weren't like that huge of a deal yet. Marvel had already made them to where you knew you had to stay.
hmm
But seeing Thanos and not being a comic book fan, but knowing at this point like they made it this far, the Avengers was successful. Now they can do something like introduce Thanos to get all of the normies like us to be like, "Oh shit, I got to, can't
yeah.
wait to see the next one."
Yeah, really quick. I saw it 4 times in theaters. The first time I saw it, like when the famous shot where Hulk punches this thing and the camera circles around, like I was shaking with goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what the fuck? You know, it's like I've never had an experience like that where like I was shaking, like everywhere, goosebumps. It was the most badass thing. Like I've never had an experience like that ever.
Yeah, and say what you want about him, but that Joss Whedon writing for those, that character writing in that movie, I mean, he did all those characters so well. I would argue that might be the Hulk's best movie in the MCU. In that,
Uh, yeah, yeah,
I mean, in that moment, that's my secret cap. I'm always angry. That's like top three MCU line, right?
yeah,
The iconic shot of Iron Man flying around the building, and then the big, I forget
yeah.
what that thing's called,
Yeah, the
but
Leviathan. Yeah, that
yeah,
was the end of the trailer, and you're like, what?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, great stuff.
My number seven, sticking with the isolation theme, and I mentioned this in an earlier video, but it's 12 Angry Men.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
It, I, I mean, I said after we watched it, I'm like, this is everything I want and love about a movie. It's so simple, but like everything is so fleshed out. We've gone into a whole discussion about this, but yeah, I love it. It's like very few times where I watch a movie where we watched it here, I immediately went home and started watching it again, like right away, and appreciated it even more the second time around. And that's how I know it's like, yes, this is good stuff.
Yeah, it's a classic for sure.
Yeah.
And you can watch our whole discussion here on the channel. My number six. I love musicals, and I feel like everyone either loves or hates musicals. There's not a ton of people that are, lukewarm on them for the most part. And I had kind of forgotten that I loved musicals until I saw La La Land, and I was like, oh yeah, I love musicals. And La La Land is like, I think the perfect example of a modern musical. There are some that have come out that I haven't cared for, or I think that the whole trope of like let's make it about a musician, so there's an excuse to do a musical. It's like it's not really, not really a musical. But La La Land, yeah, it's like a generic white people movie. I get it. I'm not saying it's the highest form of art, but I really bought into the story. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's relationship in this, I thought was excellent, and the ending, I actually really love. Like I think it's pretty polarizing. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. I actually think it was the right choice for the movie. So it also, I saw it and then immediately for the first time went to LA like the next year. So then it was like I got to see all the stuff in LA that I saw in La La
Oh,
Land.
that's right. That's right.
So that was a lot of fun too. But yeah.
But now you make the joke like, oh wait, it was actually Moonlight.
Oh yeah, it was actually my number six was Moonlight.
My number six, most people probably don't know this film, but I think I told you about it. It's called Session 9.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I watched
You
it.
did?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
After
you
you
did?
told me about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah. Yeah, horror film, low budget, like 2001, I feel like takes place in Boston about a mental hospital. And that's really all I can tell you because I really want you to
Yeah.
go see it because I've watched it so many times and it's like it's one that rewards you for picking up on clues every time. And it's great. I love it so much.
Definitely a thinker. Definitely one after it ends, you're like still thinking about it days later. Like, wait, what about when this happened? Or yeah, I got to rewatch that one. That's one that you recommended to me. I really enjoyed, but we didn't like have this yet,
Yeah,
so like
yeah.
we didn't get like really get to talk about it. So maybe that'd be a good audience cut choice eventually because yeah, I would definitely like to watch that one again. All right, getting into the top five. Now we're getting serious. This is where the criticism gets heavy. um, it was really hard to pick what horror movies I wanted to put on the list because I love horror movies. There's so many different kinds. I basically ended up just realizing it's impossible for me to be able to choose, to fit all of what I love about horror on the list. So I went with the movie. This is the only movie that, as an adult, scared me, terrified me in the theater. And yes, it's a mainstream one, but it 2017, it part one, I guess you could call it. Um, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. I mean, it might be my favorite horror performance ever. I mean, yeah, I love Michael Myers. I love the original Halloween. I still to this day don't. I forget the name of the actor that played him. Like, I'm sorry. It's like Bill Skarsgård did something that maybe, yeah, Freddy Krueger would probably be like the biggest comparison of like how Robert Englund really brought. He's iconic for that role.
Hmm.
But Bill Skarsgård to Pennywise, growing up, the original It with Tim Curry in 1990 terrified me as a child. And I'm not even scared of clowns. I don't think clowns are scary or anything. But that performance in that TV movie terrified me. And I had like repressed it in my brain to the point of like not completely forgetting about it, but like it was something terrified me as a kid. I moved on. Then the trailer for It 2017 came out, and I'm like, oh no, I'm about to be re-traumatized. And I was scared that it wouldn't be as good. I look back on the original It now, and it's like, yeah, kind of goofy and silly, but I still think it's a really good, Stephen King TV movie. But It 2017, the projector scene genuinely terrified me. A guy in the theater next to me started hyperventilating during that scene.
Really?
And then also the scene where they go into his house and he starts, mocking Billy and everything. And it's just like, it kind of gives you like creepy vibes of like, it's not real, but it's like, it kind of still scares you?
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Bill Skarsgård, like I loved the original 1990 series and was terrified watching it, growing up. And I thought, God, Bill, this Bill Skarsgård guy, he has like some heavy shoes to fill. It's like, good luck, because I feel like anyone who tries to surpass Tim Curry is like, good luck. But
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna say like surpass, but like he made it his own. Like that's like the biggest thing, like remaking something or like doing another version of it. It's like, are you just gonna remake it or are you gonna make it your own? And he really made it his own and did very well. I like the movie. It's not the scariest film I've ever seen. I remember just getting like kind of worried thoughts. Like when the sewer scene first happens, it's great, but like it shows him like bite into his arm and it has like a goofy face.
Hmm.
Like that was like that turned me off a bit, but the rest of the film was good.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's like the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it's like just those moments that I pointed out where I felt genuine fear as an adult,
Yeah.
which I don't think maybe it's two or three times in my life I've felt that,
Hmm.
not even just watching media, but just in my life. So like that being able to do that, especially that projector scene, I was like, I don't know, it took me back to being a kid and having several nightmares of Pennywise,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that projector scene is fantastic. All right, here we go. We're getting to the. Whew. All right, my number five is 500 Days of Summer. We watched this film together in the apartment you were living at the time, like way back in like 2009, 10, 11, so many years ago. And like this film is like my perfect like sad boy, nice boy film, directed by Mark Summers, I believe, or
Mark Webb.
Mark. Yeah, not the double deer guy. Yeah, Mark Webb. It's amazingly creative in the way it tells a story through time, and like it has so many like tidbits where it goes off into different sketches of stuff, and it never feels like stale, and it's so odd, and it's like the ending is so like you wanted this, but you know it's like I won't get into spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I love it to death.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a movie where I love the opening and I love the ending. And I won't spoil the ending, but the opening tells you the backstory of both Tom and Summer. And it says right up front, but this isn't a love story. And like, it's just such a great. I'm one that hates most of the time narration in movies, but the narration in this movie fits so well. And then where the movie ends up from that opening. If you just watch the opening scene and the end of the movie, I'm not saying you don't have to watch the rest. You definitely do.
Yeah,
But after you've already seen it, I can go back and just watch the opening and the end and get that emotional, kind of. It ties it in a bow.
yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
can't go into any more without spoiling it, but yeah.
yeah, and also just one of the best ending like cut to credits moments too.
Oh yeah.
All right, my number four. Dipping into the horror genre again, but finally not doing a modern one. I'm going to go with Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I love
Really?
Psycho.
Really?
Yeah,
Have we ever talked about this?
I've told you many times. I love Psycho. I love the Psycho lore. I love the character of Norman Bates. I find him fascinating. There's actually three sequels to Psycho. I have yet to see Psycho 4, unfortunately, just because it's like a TV movie that's like, I don't know how legit it is. But Psycho 2 and 3 are actually both like really good too. And the third one, Norman Bates, the actor who plays him in all the movies, directed the third one as well. And that original Psycho, I think, is like it's my favorite horror movie because it's just like classic. Everything about it is like what I want a horror movie to be, but it does something that not a lot of them do where I actually love the lore. Like a lot of the horror movies I could give or take the actual what's going on. Like Psycho is just such an interesting story to me and fascinating. The classic twist of the protagonist dying right away or, in the first act of the movie. And I even love Bates Motel, which was the modern, Psycho TV show that was made. That was done, I think it was like 5 seasons, and that was really good. So, yeah, in terms of classic horror, there's a lot of great stuff, but I'd probably put Psycho at the top.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember my first time watching it. The protagonist dying kind of took me out of it at first, but then like watching it again, I'm like, okay.
So you didn't know that the protagonist dies?
I knew of the famous scene where like the stabbing, but I didn't realize that was halfway through, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, then now we're just because our through line is gone now, so it's like it was weird, but yeah, watching it again, I'm like, okay, I understand why this is
Yeah,
good.
I can see how that would be rough because, just through pop culture, I was aware. So, like, when I went to watch the movie, I knew it was coming. So
Hmm.
that probably helped a little bit for me.
Yeah, I guess I was expecting it to be more towards the end, maybe.
You would think.
Yeah. Sticking with horror, I guess. I guess this is more of horror in the sense that, oh my God, this is dreadful. I feel miserable. And one of my favorite theater experiences of all time for having a bad experience. I mean, not a bad experience, but let me just say it. Gone Girl, David Fincher. I remember watching this film and it being done and being like I immediately read the book afterwards. I needed more of the story, and it's just ruined. And just having a protagonist that's not like the most likable guy, and like this like Neil Patrick Harris is in it, and like Tyler Perry's in it. Everyone's in like odd roles they wouldn't normally be in, and
Yeah.
they all kill it. But yeah, the vibe that this movie gave is like one of my favorites, and it's one of the few times where like I didn't see the trailer on the internet, and the trailer hooked me. One of the best trailers I've seen. Where like I need to see this, and then I saw it, blew me out of the water.
Yeah, we saw that together, and it makes me nostalgic thinking of that movie. That movie and Nightcrawler makes me nostalgic for that time of before everything was so planned out, before buying tickets on your phone weeks in advance. It's like, hey, let's just go see a movie. That movie Gone Girl just came out. Let's go see that. It's like, would we ever do that today? Like, no, everything's so like
Planned months out in advance. Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
oh God.
Let's see what movie's playing on my phone right now,
Yeah,
right? Like, what are the show
that
times?
wonderful time in 2014. That was no, yeah, first year out of high school. Yeah, it's good times.
It's just like and this was what it was like for decades, even preceding us. Like, just drive to the theater and go catch a movie, right? It's like no one really does that anymore. I'm sure some people still do, but
Yeah.
every time I walk into the theater now and I see all the movie posters, I'm like, does anyone use these? Like, does anyone walk in and go like, oh, what's
Like,
playing?
oh, look at that. Oh, we should go see that. Yeah.
Is that a dog that talks? Let's see that one.
Does anyone ever drive to? I'm thinking everyone's drives nowadays are like purposely planned. Like no one just, oh look, there's the theater. You want to? Let's go see him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember I tried to go see Goosebumps in 2015 when it came out with Haley, and it was sold out when we went to AMC, so we went to a second theater. And I just remember thinking to myself, that would never happen today. Like, because you would buy your tickets days in advance, or you'd look on the app and be like, oh, there's 10 people in here. Let's choose another one. Top three.
Oh boy, here we go. What do we got?
My number three, it's a childhood classic, but I think it's just one of the best movies ever made, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh yes, I can't believe that's not even on my list. God damn it, I love that movie.
And the best part about it is that my favorite part about the movie isn't even the Chocolate Factory stuff. Obviously, I loved that as a kid, but it's all of the skits in the first half of the movie, from like the husband being taken hostage, or uh, uh, is it Veruca's dad who has the factory and
Yeah.
all of the workers, and they're like, I found it, just all of that like borderline parody stuff before we get to the Chocolate Factory is like amazing. And then obviously Gene Wilder, one of the best performances of all time, something that so many actors could have just done shittily. I haven't seen Timothée Chalamet do it, so I haven't seen that yet. I don't know how good he did.
And I won't.
And I wasn't a fan personally of Johnny Depp's. Sorry, but Gene Wilder just like knocked it out of the park.
Gene Wilder is pitch perfect Willy Wonka, where you don't know if he's telling the truth or lying, and he plays everything so uniquely interesting, where it's like I don't know what his intention. It's like, is he lying or telling the truth? It's hilarious. Everyone knows the story, but he wanted to do the movie if he could do that opening scene with the cane, and he falls, and it's like, oh, he's fine. He wanted to do that scene because that sets the tone for his character, where it's like, you don't know if I'm bullshitting you or not. But yeah, all the stuff, like as an adult rewatching it, all the stuff leading up to, as a kid, you're like, oh, factory, get it to factory. But
Yeah.
like all the stuff leading up to the factory is the best part of the film. It's so goddamn funny.
Yeah, and even focusing on outside of the comedy, like this child of Charlie who's just living in poverty. The scene where he walks by the factory at night, and it's just like, he's dreaming of being there, and everything with his, Grandpa Joe and everything. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, except for his mom's song.
Yeah, fast forward through
Yeah,
that.
fast forward. My number three, a film we watched together in the theaters for my birthday one year because I wanted to see it on the big screen, and I've seen it a million times. The Thing, John Carpenter. You can tell I have a type of film I like
Yeah.
with all the ones I've picked so far. Isolated place, scary stuff going on. Yeah, I saw this film years ago based off the recommendation of our mutual friend Zach. And I remember I was just enamored by it. As soon as I watched it, YouTube, Google, looked up all the things about it, like when did this happen, who was the monster at this time. Like I wanted to know everything about it within like the world. And yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time seeing it, is when we got to see it in the rented out theater.
Oh shit.
And I really loved it. Of course, I had been aware and I had seen it, I think, even like at your house or a friend's house. I've seen the, clips and stuff before, but seeing it in full in the theater, and then we got to watch it also for the channel on the Patreon. You can go check that out. So yeah, obviously,
Just
classic, 10 out of 10.
We always praise practical effects. It is the practical effects movie. It is like the standard. It's like, yeah, it's great.
And it's so like flawlessly blends horror and mystery. Like, I think each one is just as good as the other. Like, as a mystery film, it's just as good as it is as a horror film, and vice versa. Which is like,
Yeah.
anytime you can blend two genres like that, bravo.
Yeah. Also, another one of my favorite endings ever. Like,
All right, number two.
oh boy, what do you got?
I don't know about you, but I went back and forth a little bit on my number one, number two, which is which. Obviously, they're going to be, completely different movies, so it's hard to compare. But for number two, I went with this one. This is my personal connection movie, Inception. Love Christopher Nolan, and Inception is what made me fall in love with movies. I think everyone out there, regardless of what age you are when you were born, whatever, everyone has that movie that was like, oh, I love movies. And for me, it was Inception. I saw it in 2010 when it came out, so we were in high school, just going into high school. IMAX, it was the first time I ever saw a movie in IMAX, and it just like completely blew me away. And I've learned to like appreciate different things over the years. Like the first time watching it, of course, I'm blown away by all the Christopher Nolan stuff, time bending and all of that. But it's also just like a really amazing story about the relationship between Leonardo DiCaprio and Mal, his wife, and just like the tragedy of it. And that didn't really get me as a teenager watching it, but now watching it recently, it makes me emotional. A little bit of a spoiler, but like his wife dies in the film. I think that's pretty well known. But like the scene where she's like, you said we were gonna grow old together, and he's like, but we did. And there's just that one shot of them as old people, like holding hands, and it's like that's all you need. It didn't need to show them, if it was made today, they'd be aged or whatever, right? It's like just the one shot of them as old people holding hands, and then back to Leonardo DiCaprio's amazing monologue about how he's like, you're just in my mind. Like I can never make you with your perfections, your imperfections. That person is dead. You're just my replacement and you're not good enough. I'm sorry. And it's just like amazing. I've luckily never had to go through that, losing someone like that. And again, like I said, I don't know if it was earlier, I think it was in the last video, but when a movie can take an experience I've never had and put me in those shoes perfectly to where I completely understand it and it gets me emotional, that's the best thing a movie can do, in my opinion.
Almost like it planted an idea in your head. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But all the other stuff is great too. Tom Hardy's amazing in the film. I think I met him the first time I saw him. Cillian Murphy's in the movie. He's great. His whole story with his dad's approval and everything. There's something in there for everybody. Is it a bit long? Maybe, but I think there's enough action and cool stuff to, get you through it.
Yeah, that's another film where like I wanted to like learn everything about it, like within the story, like all this happening, all that, and then one of the best endings of all time.
Of course. That's probably my favorite ending of all time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember we saw it like, recently in theaters, like when post-COVID when things were starting up, and I really appreciated that. I always liked the movie, but seeing it in theaters like again as an adult, I'm like, shit.
Yeah, we got to do that more because like we saw The Thing and then we saw Inception. Those are like the only two times I've seen in like a non-current movie. Literally, we had the whole theater to ourselves.
Yeah.
The Thing we rented it out, but Inception I think there was one guy and then it was us.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we're trying to get hype for like Tenet, like post-COVID.
Yeah.
So they were showing other Christopher Nolan films.
And it was the 10th anniversary too.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And it was in that literal like 1 month period when theaters opened back up during COVID and then they closed right after it.
Yeah, dude. Whenever I saw Die Hard for the first time in the theater. Jurassic Park had an anniversary. Just saw that. Return of the Jedi. Like, I'm making an effort to like see beloved films in a theater for the first time. Dawn of the Dead. It's like I need to experience it in a nice dark room.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many movies I like that I've seen on my TV that I want to experience on a big screen, but I'm delaying here. Number 2 for me, my top 2 up and down every day, depending on how I feel. My number 2 is The Shining, that we went into a deep cut on. So I won't go into much detail here, but it's just it's that film, man. It's, you know what I mean. It's magic. It has an aura to itself. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love being able to watch it with you for the first time. I had seen it before, but being able to watch it, for the channel, obviously, and talk about it, I really love it. Also, one of the best performances of all time, obviously, with Jack Nicholson.
I think Shelley was okay.
All right.
Number 1. Do we even need to? Should I guess?
Well, I'm gonna feel bad because I always thought that The Shining and The Thing were your 1 and 2, so I'm like going through my head trying to remember like what's that one.
You know what it is, and I always feel guilty for saying it.
All right. Well, do you want to guess? I know you know mine probably.
It's Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
Yep. No Star Trek movies on my list. Sorry, guys. I've seen them all once.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started to rewatch them for our discussions, but like, I think I rewatched them for the discussion.
Okay, yeah, I've seen them more than once, but like we just saw them and like I've seen them once like in that period.
If you notice, like most of ours are from like years ago. I mean, 12 Angry Men is like, it took a lot of guts, as if it's some amazing heroic thing. Like, but to put that movie that I've seen recently on a list, like I don't know, like it's because I had such an amazing experience watching it.
Yeah, when it comes to your favorites list, you have to have that connection. It has to mean more to you than just the movie on screen.
Yeah, it's not about the quality or how good it is. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of other films better than Revenge of the Sith. You know what I mean? But
better than the Avengers, Alex?
This is just I think our experiences fuel this more than the quality.
Yeah. But they're all great films.
Yeah,
but
that's why they're your favorite films.
Yeah.
I'd hope so anyway.
With that being said, my favorite movie is Arrival. I think Denis Villeneuve is quite possibly the best director working today, Dune Part 1 aside. I think that's his passion project. I get it. We have passion projects. I understand.
He's doing one for us, one for them.
Yeah.
He gave us Blade Runner 2049. He gets to do Dune.
Blade Runner 2049 almost made my list. I just couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to put 2 of his movies on here. Prisoners, I think, is an A+ movie.
Yes.
Arrival is, I think, one of the best movies of the 21st century. And yes, it gets praise and people like it, but I do think it's a little bit slept on. And an alien movie that is different than any other alien movie ever made. I mean, it is all about life, love, language, just everything that they explore in that movie. I couldn't even do it justice in this brief little segment. So it's amazing. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it. And the fact that my favorite movie of all time has Jeremy Renner is something I never would have thought would be the case. But good for him. He's not the strength of the movie, but Amy Adams, she's my favorite actress, and it's because of this movie. Her performance is amazing, and I don't want to spoil it, but the choice that her character has to make in this movie, I would never want to make, but the way she explains it, it's almost like, wow, I could never see myself making that choice, but I understand it because of the way she puts it in the movie. And yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of those. Oh, I think I was over my grandparents scrolling through Hulu. Oh, you guys want to watch this? It's an alien movie, and we watch it. And I watch it. I'm like, what? That was not what I was expecting. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's amazing. And it's one of those reveals that happens where it's like it completely turns over on its head, whatever the expression is. Where I'm like, oh, that was happening. You know what I mean? It's like, so I love when a film can do that. But my number one film of all time is Shutter Island, Martin Scorsese. And quick little story. I used to be really dumb. I mean, I still am, but like I didn't realize the problems of spoiling things for people. Where like we were in a class together, me, you, and our mutual friend Jordan, and I'm like, oh yeah, I saw a movie with my girlfriend this weekend called Shutter Island, and then like I kind of spoil what happens in it, and like Josh is like, well, thanks for spoiling the movie for me, and I'm like, oh God, no. But yeah, I've seen this movie a million times. Uh, I think it's one of Scorsese's best pictures. I know he did Goodfellas and Killers of the Flower Moon and all this, but like this one just hits home with me. I think films like it's all about like I don't know what's his best film. Like I don't think of it like that. Like how does it make me feel? Like you know what I mean? I'm sure like Goodfellas makes someone else feel better than what Shutter Island did for me. I guess it's in terms of quality and story, whatever. It's all that. But Shutter Island I relate to so much. Like I read the book shortly afterwards, and just what this character goes through. I feel like I relate to him so much, and an isolation story on an island in 1954 in Boston, and just Mark Ruffalo and Leonardo DiCaprio, and watching this whole thing play out, and you're wondering what's going on, and when things start revealing, it's like, holy shit. Yeah, I love it to death.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I will stand on the fact that I think Mark Ruffalo is one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood. I mean, the dude can do everything. I mean, obviously he was the Hulk, but I mean, he's in that movie. He's in one of my favorite rom-coms that didn't make the list, 13 Going on 30, and the movie Dark Waters. I mean, his
Oh yeah.
his performance in that. I mean, you talk about just like passion. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, you did spoil it for me at the lunch table, but to be fair, that's something we all did. The one that I remember is The Last Exorcism, watching that and coming to you and telling you the whole plot the next day. So we both did it. But
But that one always like sits with me years later. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. You know what I mean? I mean,
forgive yourself.
I mean, you used to text me multiple paragraph breakdowns of every Hellraiser film.
Yeah, when I went on the Hellraiser marathon and I didn't have any online outlet.
I would wake up every morning to like 6 paragraphs breaking down Hellraiser 4. I'm like, okay, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, and to sum it up, the first one's good, the second one's the best, and the third one's okay. But yeah, Shutter Island, we have to address that it's hilarious that both of our favorite movies feature In the Nature of Daylight or whatever that song is called.
Yes, I forgot to bring that up. Yes, both. I remember watching Arrival. I'm like, that song's in this? I'm like, holy shit. And both of our favorite films have that.
Yeah.
That's
It's like
hilarious.
the two biggest examples, and it's so funny because that's like an already existing song. And I don't know about Shutter Island, but I know that in Arrival, the movie got disqualified because Arrival has a great score, and it got disqualified from original score for the Oscars because they used that song. And Denis Villeneuve was like, I don't care, like I have to use this song, and it's a beautiful song, so it works great in Shutter Island. But of course, every time when I watch Shutter Island, I'm thinking of Arrival. When you watch Arrival, you're probably thinking of Shutter Island.
It works perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
But I will say, watching Shutter Island, obviously knowing the twist and everything. Like it is not a the film. It is not The Sixth Sense. Like it is not a the film is built on not knowing the twist. Like it's an amazing film, even though you know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, Old Boy was spoiled for me, and that that film's still great. You know, knowing like what eventually happens. I mean, I've had that happen where movies have been spoiled for me, where like I know what the big thing is, but the film still works. It's still good. I mean, obviously, I wish I wasn't spoiled, but you know, internet friends, you know, shit happens. I apologize on camera for 2010. Jesus Christ, 14 years ago. Ugh.
Well, that's our list, guys. Comment, let us know how shitty our lists are. Comment your lists of all the movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s that are better than the 21st century movies we named. I know all movies are now terrible and all movies of the past were great, but to put a cynicism aside for a second, we would love to know your guys' favorite movies too. And if there's any of the movies that we named that either you really love or you're interested in that you want us to dive deeper into for an episode of Audience Cut, let us know. But thank you for 10,000 subscribers.